So I want to throw in a disclaimer that all of this was recorded like a day or so after finishing the game, and it was very much during a honeymoon phase, and also that I was given the game from Square Enix, so thank you for that. So that being said, I do talk really damn positively about the game, and I am now, it's been a little bit now since the release, and I do actually still feel pretty good about it and agree with a lot of the sentiments still shared here. But yeah, important disclaimer, I was given a code of the game. If there is anything I could add now, we do talk about characters and how the character developments of them are portrayed in Rebirth, and how some of them have turned between being structured for a three-act game like the original into a 3-game trilogy where the stories are broken up and have their own beginning, middle, and ending 3 times. And in that process, another character that is affected by that is going to be Yuffie, who is shown through the middle of Rebirth being apprehensive against the beliefs of the live stream and everything regarding Aerith. And then at the end of the game, she coincidentally spends so much time with Aerith and seeing a lot of things more firsthand. It's going to change a lot about how she feels about it, going against how she was raised in Wutai. So that's just another building block of character development that is going into the 3rd game. Other than that, that's really the only other thought I had, so here is the rest of the video as we recorded it. Oh, and also, all of this footage is mine. It was recorded after like a patch or 2 where they made the 60 FPS a lot better, so now I could actually tolerate it. I don't know if I would have played the main game like this, because it is still a bit blurry, but just playing it and feeling it being a lot smoother, it was very nice. But yeah, this is all my own footage. I pulled up to see chat, but your gameplay's 60 FPS. How was it?
So obviously the biggest problem with the 60 FPS is that the image quality is not only poor, it feels last generation.
Yeah.
I personally, when it comes to like AAA development, especially this far along in the PS5 life cycle, I think there's really no excuse for it. And I think it's also mainly because it's a holdover from Unreal Engine 4. Not to sit there and be like pull a Extra Life, right? And be like, oh, well, Unreal Engine, blah, blah, blah. But like, let's be honest, if this was on 5, I think that maybe the image quality problems wouldn't be anywhere near as rampant. So, but then again, I'm not entirely sure.
Because, yeah, well, because I played on quality the entire time, and I was fine with like delay and like frame pacing felt completely fine. It felt like it was intentional. It didn't feel like it was too slow or inconsistent. Felt good the whole time.
60 feels like a dream to play. Like there's very few times where I ever find myself like actually like there's like maybe 1 or 2 times where there was some slowdown. But I would even it was probably like in the 55 to 54 FPS range for the most part. You're always going to get a straight up 60.
Yeah, it makes me jealous, but I know how it looks full screen blown up.
Yeah, and the thing is that it's variable as hell too. Like there's even certain areas in the open world that feel like looks like much better.
Yeah,
and then there's others that are just like, especially when you get to Remnant Towers, whenever you get to try to activate those, the ghosting artifacting on the ladders is so bad. It's like
there's all that ghosting anytime you do a fight in the combat sim on the floor.
Yeah.
That's TAA for you. That's the artifacting of it.
I'm hoping that whatever solution they've got coming down the pipeline fixes a substantial amount of it, but we'll see what happens.
Right, and it's hard to ignore because they don't do that in press material. They hide it in press material. So I noticed that with Tekken, like the game looks different than the trailers just because they let it render at like a native 4K.
I'm wondering if that's because like we're literally looking at the PC build version of the game, which I think reportedly we might be getting a lot sooner than we think, just because of the fact that the exclusivity window is very strange with this one. I think so. By the time you guys are going to be hearing this discussion in video format, we're kind of just live streaming this. This is just going to be like a thing we check on the end of the massive series I'm working on for Rebirth. Just wanted to talk with Austin about the craziness that happens in Rebirth.
Yep.
But by the time you guys see this, the exclusivity window might just be up, Yeah, I know it's going to be up in like sometime in May, like in the middle of May.
Oh wow.
And so that means there's only a 3-month window, and there's a lot of rumors around that. The first rumor is obviously the PC version is going to probably be coming much sooner than later. The second rumor, which I think is even crazier, but honestly, now having played the game at the image quality that I have, is the idea that this might actually be a launch title on the Switch 2 or whatever the next generation Switch is going to be.
Oh man, that'd be pushing it.
That would be kind of crazy.
I think it would be pushing it because this game already has the longest load times of any PS5 game I've ever played.
But I don't know. I haven't really dealt with a whole lot of load times myself. I know.
What are your hours? What's your mini game completion?
I would have to open it back up again, but I'm at the 75-hour mark. So
I was at 106 hours. I have done everything in the game except the very final side quest and a bunch of combat sims. Restarting the mini games are painful.
Really? Because I wonder if that's like a quality thing. Because whenever I restart the mini games, at least the loading screens don't feel anywhere near as bad. So
Queen's Blood is pretty fast. Queen's Blood is pretty fast. There's some others that are really fast, like the fighting one. And then you get like Chocobo Racing, and Chocobo Racing's miserable. And at that point, it might even be intentional there, because if you fuck up on the first lap, you're fine. You can just keep going. You know, you got two other laps to recover from. But absolutely. Oh man, this was like with there's a lot to like love and everything, and it's great how much like time was put into the mini games. But I have stopped, and I haven't finished that one side quest, and I probably won't, because I'm burnt out. And I'm burnt out because I'm doing these things arbitrarily for completion's sake and not because I'm having fun. The max level of difficulty that they expect you to do in these mini games is not fun.
So that's actually a topic I wanted to get to at some point, but we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves. Let's sort of rein this in and sort of get some kind of format, I guess, going, just to keep going.
Sure, go for it.
Let's talk about just our general thought structure of the game, all the design, like just it as a whole. I want to let you go ahead and go first.
It was phenomenal. This game is so beautiful. Although, like, you know, VII Remake is still top 3 best looking PS4 games, and that's incredible. Everything else is kind of catching up now, but this is still a gorgeous game. Story pacing, I felt, was better than Remake. A lot of padding design, I think it can be excused in a game that is fully open world, where the most you deal with it is, number one, it's optional, or it's part of a dungeon. You know, in Final Fantasy games, you do that kind of like menial shit in dungeons all the time. So I was a lot more forgiving on those regards. Writing, there was some very, very good lines of dialogue. This is one of the best written, like, Square Enix games. And really impressive. And it's good to know that, like, the impressive writing isn't just stopping at, like, the MMO.
Yes,
there's
absolutely.
some very solid lines and intentional directions that things go in. And the gameplay, because the gameplay is not just about how much variety there is to the player, but how much variety there is in what enemies can do. And I was thinking about this the entirety of playing Final Fantasy 16, but that's because that's an action game. But in VII Rebirth, enemy variety keeps the gameplay really interesting. And we were saying mini games, generally the common exposure you have to them, fine. And the ending didn't, as I kind of expected, was not as controversial as I thought it would be for me.
Okay.
Overall, this game is, you know, it's not greatest game. It could be game of the year. And the music was fucking phenomenal. Goddamn, the music never stopped.
The idea that there's entirely side quests that have their own music tracks is incredible.
They took the criticisms of the side quest and NPC designs of the first game very seriously. Every single side quest has... It's not like Baldur's Gate mocap, but they all do have original animations just for side quests. The side quest stuff you do is more interesting.
Absolutely. So, if I were to give like a very succinct idea of my thoughts altogether, this is the second best Yakuza game I've played this year. Other than that, I pretty much agree fully across the board.
They kind of shattered expectations. You know,
yeah,
because going to the length of the Forgotten City was already pretty huge in scope considering how far they got in remake, and then they just add even more into it and go into quite a bit of extra detail that they didn't necessarily need to.
Yes.
It's just really impressive.
Yeah, so this is probably one of the most impressive feats, I think, for me personally, that I've played on a Square Enix title. It's the first time in a long time that I've played a Final Fantasy game and have gone, this is it. This is the same feeling I got
the PS1
when I was a
ones.
kid. Yeah, when I was playing the PS1 titles. Because, like, even 8, which I historically am not a very big fan of, still had that feeling that, like, and Final Fantasy encapsulates, and it's really hard to kind of discuss or to really sort of put into words, and you just kind of have to play it and feel it. It's just it's the one of the best JRPG franchises of all time.
Yeah,
and
one of
the PS1 and pretty much the previous ones always, like, they embody this feeling of quality that's like incredible. That's just really hard to replicate. Yeah,
because it always felt since Final Fantasy X. You know, 10 doesn't have an open world. It had to draw things back. The first 9 games had they weren't open world, they were open planets. They were the entire planets. And the scale of JRPGs at the time, even into PS2, like Tales of Symphonia is an open world, but that's they made sacrifices and compromises to keep that kind of thing, and it didn't feel like they didn't want to go that route anymore. With how 10 went, and then 12's completely different direction, and then 13's completely linear too. It felt like they didn't feel like doing that because the hardware wasn't capable of it.
Absolutely.
And now we can clearly see the hardware is there to fully realize a world. Because this game is, and what I noticed about what turns people away from it and how people have come away from it, is this game is for Final Fantasy as of recent years. This is unapologetically a JRPG game. It is so unapologetically JRPG.
Yeah. It's actually the conversation that I wanted to bring up was there are a ton of people talking about this. There's like this really weird dichotomy between people, and it's the mention of the side quest or the quote unquote padding of the content, right? And I think that there was a comment that I saw that made a lot of sense, where they went on and said, I think the reason why gamers feel like this is padding, or like the side quest and even the mini games are ultimately padding, is because we've been so used to being peddled like all of this like shit. Like basically every single time that we play an open world game or like a game that's relatively large, it hits you with objective after objective. You see quest markers everywhere, and there's all sorts of stuff that like just makes us we become very consumption based gamers as opposed to letting ourselves just kind of be part of the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people misconstrue that by saying that, oh, if you just add a quest marker or if you put up a thing on the map, my unfortunately idiot gamer brain rot is going to turn around and say that I have to do this. And I keep seeing that consistently through, like, even in our Discords, I see that happen when people are like, I like the game, but it feels like I'm being forced to play the side quest. I never once felt like I was being forced in any sort of side quest, in any sort of like objective that I didn't want to participate in. And I would say that yes, there are some certain people that are saying that the only reason people feel the way they do about the open world or the objectives is purely nostalgia, But I would argue that nostalgia is basically just spotting. It's not doing the heavy lifting here.
I think
and
if
the major
you,
reason behind that.
Oh yeah,
go
on. Because I have a whole tangent to go on.
Oh sure. I was gonna say I think the major reason behind it not necessarily being a nostalgia thing is because there is so much of an expansion to the world that we just don't know. I'm playing the original game alongside getting the Rebirth thing, because my intention for the review series, when you guys see the video, you'll know what it's all about. But for everyone who's watching the stream, who's going to be watching this like VOD, I'm going to basically talk about what happened in the original, and then literally go into what the differences are with Rebirth, what are like the story differences, what are the story expansions that they did. And I'll be honest, it's so much more than I was originally anticipating.
Yeah.
That the original feels bare by comparison. Like it's insane how much the expansion feels.
Because a lot of it feels like welcome, because there are well, I'll say that like a playthrough of the original game is honestly extremely important. Like I already replayed the original 7 this year, and that made a tremendous difference on picking up on so many details and things that were added. And the additions that they make are just a lot of things that are like, they were probably like Ultimania details before, but they make sense to introduce. And the one I always go to that like it feels like it's an extra detail, and it's what happens when you try to remake a game like this, and you know the original game is faster paced just because the way you told stories was different. And key thing that comes with that is like kind of losing subtlety, because you don't need the subtlety as much now that you can expand as you can. But anyway, so there's a lot different or a lot of like added details to things, and a lot of things that you have to imagine that if you're in a like a writing room and you are trying to model and arrange cutscenes and worry about the choreography of every cutscene that's adapting the source material to fully fledged 3D with these detailed models and animations, and then you have to go through like how the original was written to and its intentions. In the first game, the example I always go to is in the original game, when the plate is falling, Aerith doesn't make any attempt to save anybody else besides Marlene. She beelines it to Marlene and gets out. Would Aerith of all characters do that? So then that gives a good reason to expand on it in Remake like they did. And then that continues here. Like, of course, Barrett is going to bring up working in the mines when they're in the Mithril mines. Of course, the Cetra were not a perfect people. Like, that's a really good fucking detail to add.
That's a really crazy new story detail that I was like, that's really cool that they're really turning around.
Nuanced thing.
And, yeah. The idea that like the ancients and the Cetra, basically the one and the same, but like the ancients were considered this like, oh, this really holier than thou people.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
They were all so cool. And like the traditional JRPG shit back in the day, and now it's like, actually, they kind of low-key sucked, and they were super gatekeepy about everything.
Right.
To the point where you kind of disagree. It's like, you really do feel bad for the Gi, and honestly, a little bit for Sephiroth, because he's technically of the live stream and not at the same time. So you've got to wonder. That's so,
yeah, because they were when Guy was talking about that, and they can't return to the live stream because they didn't come from the planet. What else doesn't come from the planet? Genova.
Right.
And then suddenly it with everything that they did expand on, and in terms of where the wild things in the end go, it's like, why is Genova capable of all this? Genova's immortal. Like, whatever relations there might be, you know, there's an explanation right there. If you're not from the planet, you literally cannot return to the live stream if you didn't fucking come from it.
Which really leads me to believe that my theory, the one that I think you agreed with me on the first time we spoke about this a couple months back with Rebirth, I really do think Redemption's going to be the third tag title now, because there's going to be so much more. Yeah, there's going to be so much more that like lines up with that, because now, before we get into like the full story spoilers, but like where fucking Cloud was at the end of the game, like he went from like an unreliable narrator to this man has basically like dimensional schizophrenia. Like, it's
I was
insane.
That's what I always felt, and I feel like, because I haven't seen Advent Children, and I was gonna ask this if so he's having these Aerith visions, or like he's the only one that is seeing Aerith, and this is a part of his newfound trauma and struggle with loss now, because Aerith's dead. Aerith is dead. She is not with us, but Cloud is still envisioning her, and that's that. To my understanding, in Advent Children, that is kind of a plot point and why Cloud is like how he is in Advent Children is because he blames himself for Aerith's death.
So most of Advent Children's plot is essentially all of the cast and crew are going through the idea of living in a ruined world post Meteor, right? Not only did Meteor fuck everything up and essentially like they're trying to rebuild that stuff that happened, but you effectively removed an energy resource that dictated everybody's lives, so you have to start quite literally from zero. So there's these guys who are like, yeah, I mean, the whole crew of FF7, they're like, okay, we were right in what we did, but man, the amount of work we're going to have to put in to even get to a point where it feels like it was worth our time and investment just doesn't even feel like it's worth it, right?
Right.
So he's constantly struggling and battling within himself to like even be able to look at himself in the mirror and be like, I'm not a piece of shit. And they once again hit him with the whole Kadaj and all his crew, and they consistently keep calling him like brother because he's got ties to Sephiroth at the end of the day. And then with the book, one of the books that came out a little while back, when Aerith is in the live stream and she's talking to fucking Jesse and Biggs and Wedge when they're in the live stream, and she realizes that Cloud unfortunately has this intellectual tie to Sephiroth that gives him a sort of like immortality that it doesn't exist for normal like beings, because first of all he can't get in the live stream. So it's like the longer that Cloud stays alive and keeps the memory of Sephiroth there, eventually Sephiroth is going to always come back. He's always an existential threat to the planet.
Yeah.
So it's like this problem where it's like Cloud ultimately is the one link that's still basically holding the planet hostage, and that sucks. Yeah. Because it's not Cloud's fault, but it's nothing he can fucking do. So
yeah. So that's definitely why I like how they're going about it, because so far to me and how they've explained it makes a lot of sense. And yeah, that's what I gathered from everything in that ending. Cloud's even more fucked up and traumatized. Now that he's struggling with this loss of Aerith as well. Yeah, no, that poor guy. And also, that's still, some of the earlier comments I read were on characterizations that Lost beat, and I still haven't figured out who they're talking about is mischaracterized in Rebirth. Because Cloud is possessed by Sephiroth in the original game. When the Temple of the Ancients disappears in the original game, Cloud is there beating Aerith. So the idea of him taking a swing at Tifa, even that was so fucking stressful. But that's not out of character.
You know, I'll be honest with you, Austin. I'm looking at, and I've been trying to go on like a cleanse emotionally I'm off of Twitter. So,
I had everything muted. I muted it this morning, and it was a mistake.
Yeah. It is. There are people calling the writing infantile, and I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I don't think people know what I don't think people know what good writing is. I think that people are so tied into their own idea and bias of a thing. Right. And everyone looks at every single thing with rose-colored glasses. That when something like this happens, and it's probably the most ambitious remake project I think I've ever seen. And now with the release of Rebirth and what it did and what it's about, it is 100% the most ambitious taking on. But I am also seeing insane narratives about the development time and how people are like, it shouldn't take an 11 to 12 year fucking development span to create an open world like this. And I shit you not, it's like people completely forget GTA's fucking thing, how long Cyberpunk took to get here. It's only because Ubisoft is there shitting out fucking open world games left and right every single other goddamn day. And it's like, well, it shouldn't take that fucking long. And you know what? How you explained it is how I should really interpret that if someone ever hits me with that. It's like, you have to understand, Final Fantasy wasn't open world, it was open planet.
Yeah.
And that's what this feels the closest to open planet that I think since Elden Ring, and I want to say Breath of the Wild is pretty close as well. I've been told that Breath of the Wild expansion is insane, especially with the Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, because I mean, to a degree, that's the only other times I felt like giving up on open world games has... I haven't given up on Xenoblade 3. I'm going to go back and do all that stuff. But it's just that there is so much content in that. And there's too much content in Tears of the Kingdom. This is close to it, although this still has some remnants of, like, pacing issues, and it's not severe. It's just that the sheer number of things to do is still astronomically high. It's hitting close to, like... the number of Tears of the Kingdom or Xenoblade 3. It's up there. But the reason it's at like 100 hours instead of 70 hours for me is just because there is it's more like non-important pacing issues. Things like menu UI slowdown. If you can't just navigate through menus like snap really fast. But fast travel doesn't unlock. Proper fast travel doesn't unlock for a good long time. Things like that would have made a big difference.
But you know what the thing is that ultimately, once again, I will say that I am looking at this through the lens of this is one of my favorite games of all time, like the original, and I was fully expecting to like be lost in the world after a certain point, but. For whatever reason, the way that I handled it and the way that I went through the game, I think the only time the pacing ever truly felt off was in Gongaga, because Gongaga is a fucking labyrinth. Like, there's so
cool
much
ideas.
in Gongaga.
Because you know what it really felt like to me is like if Zelda didn't take the direction it was going to go in a complete open world, if it was these kind of zones, this is probably where Zelda would have went in, because that's what all I can think of is in Skyward Sword, each zone is arranged like this, except more open world, where the chocobos do different things. The climbing outside of Junon or the flying you get later, it just felt cool because that's a good design philosophy is opening up. It really felt like if Zelda was still going in its traditional dungeon design, it probably would have zones like this instead of one open world.
Yeah. So the way I see it is that there's two forms of open world or like open game design, and that's the traditional format of relying mostly on emergent gameplay, mixed in with potentially like some side quests that have like direction to it. So you got your Bethesda games, got a lot of your BioWare games as well. Or you have the Ubisoft kind of quest design where it's like, all right, now we're going to give you a bunch of things to do in the world, and it's going to basically all center around you going to a place, like going to a tower, opening up that tower, and that tower now opens up side quests for you to do. And this is 100% taking on the Ubisoft quest design. The difference here is that when I'm doing the best way I can explain it is I think Grasslands. When I'm doing the open world, right? And I'm like walking around, and I'm like, oh, okay, so I'm learning about the world. I went to a Mako fountain, and I unlocked it, and it gave me more lore that the original never even touches on.
Oh yeah,
in the slightest.
That's what I was saying. Like if there's anything, it might have been in the Ultimania, but that's about it.
Right. Yeah. And it's like you're learning. It's like you're learning everything about what's going on, and none of it feels irrelevant. Like it's all happening in real time.
It's like, really.
We're talking about
like those side details, or it could be foreshadowing. Like they're telling you it because it could be foreshadowing.
Right. Like the Republic of, like the whole war between the Republic of Junon and Shinra might just be replayed in Part 3 with Wutai, because now we're at war with Wutai now, 100%. Like that's going to be a huge portion of Part 3's plot now.
Which I like that, you know, in the original game, all NPC conversation changes when Meteor is seen in the sky, and so they do something similar here where it changes to be around the war. Like, you know, that's not something they had to keep because they're not there yet, but you can feel how they know what they're doing. The direction is written in stone now, so they're properly adapting things to not just be more expansive, but to also fit a 3-game arc. Not a 3 like arc story, but direct games. That's why it's like with say Barrett's development, phenomenal. He hasn't had like his moment of sitting down on and reflected on what he's done, and he hasn't like really discussed, like, because people keep bringing it up. The Turks brought it up to him about what he did and how many lives he could, or how much blood is on his hands too. And Dying didn't know that, so they wouldn't have brought that up. And in the original game, that happens. That still happens more with like Kate Sith addressing it to him. But so that hasn't like. That's for Part 3. That's for Part 3 is to be like the capstone on character developments like that. Absolutely.
But what I was alluding to was like, okay, so you got this quest where you're picking up Mako stones, and you're like exploring the area, and you've got all these like really rich resources around you that help with item transmutation. Yeah. And then Chadley hits you up, and he's like, hey, I got a place where you can get a transmuter chip, and you go there and you take your chocobo, and it's got the funky transmuter chip music for whatever reason. Yeah. And that's really good. And you pick up a fucking transmuter chip for a windmill gear, and you're like, huh, okay, what's this for? And as you continue on down the path, you unlock a boss fight, and you go and take care of the boss fight, and you get a fucking like material that makes that windmill gear that then leads into a side mission where you're like, oh, okay, I already have this, here you go. Yeah. And that's the whole game, is like, none of the content is forced onto you, but every single part of the game's content builds onto one another, so it's always rewarding you. It's always an infinite feedback loop of like, you're getting something. You're getting something out of your time investment. You never feel like you're being gypped on anything. It never feels like there's this like grand scheme to just monopolize your time. You're exploring the world, you're fighting these amazing fights, you're like unlocking lore around the region, you're discovering new characters, and the Proto Relic questline is like its own fucking entire questline that has entirely different like things. You go from one area where you're tracking down bandits who are trying or giving you the slip every other time, to the other area where you get fucking isekai'd into a board game, and then the next area where it's like there's this like desert fucking ruins you have to go through, and you have to do the Shadow of Colossus thing with like supporting the cactuar thing in the sky. Yeah, the side quests, like that's a kind of a Bethesda and even like a Zelda approach too. And then with the Proto Relics, now they're different games, but when Tears of the Kingdom does things like if the Proto Relics were something of Tears of the Kingdom, you would be doing the same activity every time in each zone. But here that's what like I loved about the Proto Relics is it's everything you do is different in every zone. This game was made by people that love Final Fantasy and love Final Fantasy VII. And they loved getting to do what they do and expand on it. And the I got to the last of the Proto Relics. I have and it fucking pains me, because Gilgamesh is one of my favorite like Final Fantasy things in general. So I would like to go back to that, but oh goddamn man, there are some challenging fights, and you have to get all the summons for the Gilgamesh thing as well. Right. That shit's tough. And I'm just stuck on the last one for that. Like literally at the tail end of these things, but the burnout is hit, so I can't worry about it later. I don't blame you. Have you played any of hard mode? Did you see? No, I don't like. I just straight don't like not having items. Like that immediately ruins my interest in anything. I feel you. one of the hard mode fights in the combat simulator is a gauntlet of back-to-back summon fights.
Oh man,
it is insane. You fight,
Well,
and it's not just one. It's Kujata and Phoenix together, and you fight them together.
Yeah, that's what you got to do for the proto relics.
Yeah.
Yeah, the very end of the proto relics one, you have to get the very last proto relics. You got to fight 2 summons together for each one. Fucking insane. So that, and I saw it was like that, and I was like, man, I'm gonna have to come back to this. I'm at 100 hours. I'm good.
1 second, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you take your time.
Why don't you lead the way?
Chat, do you have game audio? Chat, do you have game audio? Oh, it's there. It's just really quiet. It's just extremely quiet. I'll let Phil know.
I'm sorry. What was extremely quiet?
Oh, the game's audio on your screen.
Oh, because I don't have the audio on. I have the
okay.
extended theme in the background just kind of playing.
Okay, gotcha. Wait, do you?
So, yeah, I do.
I don't hear anything besides our
was-
voices when I turned it up.
Okay, try it now because I have it playing.
Okay, try it
now. I have it playing.
I can see
I see
like
it being
the
captured.
I see the audio going up, but I don't hear it. Just music. Okay, as long as Chad hears the music, yeah, never mind then.
Okay, the music is that's the game audio is not on. So
right.
My apologies. I just stepped away to talk to my family for a second.
Mm-hmm.
You should have called this the post-nut stream. I really should have. But anyways, what were you saying before? I'm really sorry to interrupt you.
The burnout, the proto relics, and the fighting all the summons required for it.
Yeah, it's a really crazy, expansive game. There's so much more going on to it. I understand that there's going to be people who feel relatively burned out by it because, well, I think for you specifically, I understand it because you're it's tied to things you want to do with like your concentration career and stuff like that. So it makes sense. But like, I feel like if for the layman, for people out there who aren't like trying to, even though I'm trying to make a video series off this, I'm taking my time.
Yeah.
I'm going through the second playthrough, and as I'm playing it, I still have that feeling of like, fuck, this game is good. Fuck, this quest is amazing. Even though I'm like during certain cutscenes, I'm going on and I'm like scrolling through like my browser, seeing what everyone's talking about. Like I still come back trying to pick up the controller, and it still feels good to be in this world. You know what I mean? Like, and that is even something that I would get away from with Remake, because I loved Remake, but Remake had a lot of sections in it now in the back half where I'm like, I kind of hated almost every side quest in Remake. It was very few side quests that actually
it wasn't
worth doing.
I thought they were innocuous, but they were not anything to write home about at all.
Yeah.
And if it's like that to me, that must mean other people despise it and they'll put down the game over it. Which is like, even for, that's what I was saying, like for some casuals who have stopped playing because even in Rebirth, it's too much padding and too much. That's what I mean by this game's, I mean, for other reasons, it's unapologetically JRPG. But this was not made for the layman. This was not made for the very casual AAA player who's only playing who so far has played like a Spider-Man, a God of War, and then this, and I think they're gonna bounce off of it. And it's not for them, and I feel like they embrace that too, and I think that's to its strength.
Yeah, no, I mean, and you see it because like, did you see that? I'm sure you're familiar with Edge, right? As a magazine.
Yes, the
magazine.
magazine.
You know how absolutely fucking miserable they are with like scoring. They gave it a 9.
Yeah. Huh.
They haven't given a Final Fantasy game a 9 since 12. They gave Rebirth a 9. If the idea that not even Edge could bring the fucking Metacritic score down from the 90s should tell people that this game is incredible, but there's this worry that I have now, because, and I think that there's definitely going to be something that's like padding out the blow of it, but I don't know if you've been keeping up with the Japanese physical sales numbers debacle and how kind of awful it is right now, and how there's so many people creating these intense narratives around it, because that's what we do on the internet now. We see one thing, we have to catastrophize fucking literally every single thing. But yeah, so Remake sold to 702,000 units in its first week, and then dropped pretty significantly. And Rebirth
Physical
only
in
sold
Japan?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then
Rebirth?
And then Rebirth sold only 200,024. I'm sorry, 1,000 copies.
For physical in
So
Japan, that's still good.
It's good, but it's a significant drop off, especially when the next week was only 22,000 copies additional, I think. So it's like there's a lot of people, and what's more is we're not, like, Square Enix is being very tight-lipped on the sales number data across the board, which is weird for them. And I think if this game bombs in sales, I really don't think it's going to. I feel it's going to be one of those kind of like games that's going to have much longer legs, and people, once the PC version comes out, right?
Yeah,
people are going to be like, oh, okay, 100%, I'm on board. But it is really frustrating as a fan of not only Final Fantasy, but like, not even VII, but like just Final Fantasy as a whole, that literally one of the best games in the entire franchise is. There's so many people who are coming at it from like with their own built-in narratives, and it's like gaming has got like this whole fucking stink on it of like opinions and biases now, and people go into all sorts of games with preconceived notions and what have you, and it's like you hear like, oh man, it's got Ubisoft towers, I'm gonna hate this fucking game,
right?
Which is why, like, but you know what I also think about, if Donkey made a positive video about Final Fantasy VII, that in and of itself should tell you the quality of this game. That, I feel like, when he turns around and goes, is this game good? Like, that, when he has that fucking question to himself in his latest video, and he has a whole review where he shits on Remake, like, very hard.
Right.
And he does so in a way where we've all had the conversation where it feels like Donkey just misrepresents titles very hard, especially JRPGs.
Right.
He goes out of his ways to misrepresent them. And for him to turn around and like show that he was having fun with FF7 Rebirth, that I think should be the seal of quality that people adhere to. But there's this like weird fucking thing, and then not only on top of that, there's all these people who are like, I'm so upset with the storyline because all they hear is multiverse, and they don't try to give it any room to grow. They don't think about
it's so like those and those people wouldn't know from either not playing the original or not playing it recently. This game is so fucking faithful. It's arguably faithful to a fault.
Yeah, because
some of the like. In the original game, it is you go in place to place to place to place, and in here they took time to put in some motivations, but sometimes some of the plot beats feel like they just happen for the sake of happening because that's how they happened in the original. It makes me think, I'm starting to think maybe people didn't want a fucking remake. Maybe you didn't actually like Final Fantasy VII as much as you would say.
So what I saw actually was there, you know, because I go to basically Reddit and Resetera and all those other places. Now, fuck Twitter. Twitter's a hellhole right now.
Right.
But like, you know, I saw a guy who said, yeah, I honestly feel like if it's what it's like it feels like bloated realism, and I'm like, what are you fucking talking about, bro? Like, like. It's people stuck in the past. It's a combination of things. It's people who have their weird preconceptions and biases about the title. It's people who are absolutely stuck in the past and are looking at the game with rose-colored glasses. And when you go back and play the game, like, I'm playing the original alongside, and I was enjoying my time, and then I'm going through and I'm like, wait, what? What's the story motivation for what we're doing here?
Right, exactly.
Wait, why?
Like wait. Yeah, it's like literally what they're setting up Rufus for, and like everything that's going on with Glenn is going to be part of the tumult he takes in 3 that leads into moving the Junon canon over to Midgar, and subsequently his quote-unquote death, right? Depending on how they decide to go about it. But, you know, that's where Rufus is going to go off the deep end, and that's what they're alluding to now, you know?
Yeah.
And it's really cool because they're doing it in a way that kind of parallels what Cloud's going through, and that's really fucking cool. But like those kind of things and like those details and motivation. So they're giving Rufus a more proper motivation because he didn't have that in the original. He didn't have motivation to move the cannon or to like in the original. Like they're even like it kind of doesn't like it kind of works with him not having motivation because the Turks go everywhere alone, and then now. Like a bunch of Shinra troops always get sent out close by as well.
Right. And you know, even with Rufus' characterization, I think I love it so much more now because in the original, it kind of, when his father died and he took over and he was like, yeah, I'm just going to basically do what Dad wanted to do, kind of, you know what I mean?
And that's it.
And that's it. And in this one, it's like, no, so we still don't know what the Magnus materia or the huge materia is being used for here. I'm assuming it's going to be the same thing of like building a weapon of some sort, but like they don't allude to that. They kind of leave that in the mystery. They're like, nah, but like he's talking about the Promised Land, and Sephiroth is acting as an entire antagonist to him through Glenn now, which is insane to think about. Where it's like. No matter what, Rufus keeps getting stopgapped by all these people. He just wants to do his own thing and to like run the company his way. And no matter what, there are people who are just forcing his hand. And he's like, and you start seeing that like at the end when he fucking like fires into the clone, right? That Glenn was inhabiting, and he's just like, I'm pissed. Like, get the fuck out of my shit. I'm just trying to do my thing, man. Like I can't. The man's dead, and I still can't have my own legacy. Like that's like a whole new character arc to him.
Yeah, like in doing that, and just I love when like the antagonist is an antithesis to the protagonist, like suffering the same fate and going about it in different ways, or coping about it in different ways. So like taking that angle, and then it's like. Well, that's all. That's all Glenn's for. Like these additions can be confusing, like the multiverse shit or like whatever the hell's going on with Glenn. Their purpose is straightforward. Rufus is just going insane, and Sephiroth and Aerith are still having their 5D chess game going on.
Right.
With the whispers and this multiverse stuff.
Yeah, and I think people can dislike that stuff. I think that's wholly fine. I think it's when you don't try to meet it. This is why I keep trying to tell people, try to approach media halfway, and you'll find that you're going to either enjoy something or it's going to not affect you anywhere near as hard as you thought before. Right. Because if you sit there, like when I came off of a remake, I didn't know how much of a purist I was or I wanted to be. Right. And then we had that whole conversation, we had the whole podcast where I was like, I loved everything that was added except the weird ghost shit. Right. And now the more I think about it, because the ghost stuff and all the like the multiverse stuff has been like far more well realized, and the intention behind it isn't to kind of like do away with people like, oh, people are alive now and it's okay and we're all going to be honky-dory. It's more like the confirmation, and it's like, oh, Zack keeps getting like dying in every timeline. No matter where he goes, he keeps getting like fucking like cornered by Shinra and dying. Aerith keeps getting fucked up by Sephiroth. There is a universal constant. It's a canon event every single time, no matter what. And
building on that, because these are things of the original game.
Yeah.
This loss and trauma cope.
Right. That's why I loved it. I was like, this is actually a unique and fun way to still take on the themes of the game and still have that moment of like, and I think people were like, oh, they took the impact away with the Aerith death. You knew she was going to die.
Yeah, it was never going to be there anyway.
That. It was never going to be the same. You know that they can't just do that all over again.
So you were the idea of turning it into, oh, Cloud is still seeing her because now he's even more fucked up.
Yeah,
it's a really good angle.
Yeah, the Schrodinger's Aerith is like an actually really good way to fucking like look
build
at that and go, what the fuck? And it's interesting and silly and perfectly Japanese, and I don't understand why people allow these kinds of shenanigans to happen in any other media, but I get that there's so much love, and I understand. I understand. Final Fantasy VII was my first game. I, too, walked away from Remake fucked up about it. But now that I understand what they're going for,
right.
I'm not the biggest fan, but I'm excited to see where it goes. Because I know that it isn't just that, right?
Yeah, and that's what still makes it hard to discuss, is people can get now that Remake isn't a remake, it's a kind of meta remake. But we have sat on it and thought about it for 4 years, but a lot of people just bounced off it originally and never put more thought into it. So when it keeps going and it keeps building, like these concepts and what they're trying to do, people haven't thought of in years, or haven't like thought on it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, it's like I want to I want to go ahead and be like you're completely fine to feel that way, but at the same token, it's like it's narrow-minded. It's you're denying yourself one of the best experiences in Final Fantasy ever if you don't try to play this game at least once. And like it does require you to play the remake, and I would even go ahead and say it requires you to play at least FF7 OG. And I will fault the game
definitely.
for that. I will fault the game that they, as a love letter to people like you and I, who for the most part we've consumed a lot of the compilation material from the early 2000s, right? I haven't read the books. I want to read the books. I want to get around to it. But I've played Dirge. I've watched Advent Children. I've played Crisis before. I've looked into Before Crisis. I know about all this shit. And the idea that there's so many references to these things, and there's entire side quests that are completely optional that reference all of the compilation material and just build on the characters in fun and unique ways. It's like it is the biggest love letter to FF7 and Final Fantasy, like you said. It is the best interpretation of a Final Fantasy game I've ever seen.
Because this is actually from Katase's team, the team that has made 7, 8, 10, the 13 trilogy, 10-2, and everything with the compilation. That team has never really referenced Final Fantasy in more subtle ways. But the fact that in this game, coming from them, has the best interpretation of Gilgamesh. That's what Gilgamesh, it's the best Gilgamesh has been since in his inception, and in 5, and then also in 14. And also the other references too. The mini game that had Final Fantasy XII's gambits was a bit much, because it was just Final Fantasy 12. That was so fucking cool, though.
Yeah,
the whole minigame is just the gambit system.
You have that one. Then you have the poster with Zell from Final Fantasy VIII doing the dolphin blow. Then you have Yuffie referring to the Yuffie Recon Patrol as YRP. You have Elena eating a sea salt ice cream. It's a fucking love letter to Square Enix. It's everything. It's all of these amazing references, and it's all incredible.
The piano stuff, that's Final Fantasy V. In Final Fantasy V, it was an unlisted, you're not told any side quests there, but that's part of a side quest chain in Final Fantasy V, was to play pianos in towns.
Yeah.
I forget what the reward was, but that's what you did in Final Fantasy V, was play pianos.
And you know what? I don't think there's never been a Final Fantasy that's done that. And this one benefits so greatly by acknowledging its past. It's not only a fucking remake for 7, it's a remake for Final Fantasy as a whole, to the point where I'm like, this has got to be what 17 is. 17 has to do this, because if they regress, it's gonna be ass. I'll be honest.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine.
I don't want another 16. I loved 16. I thought 16 was a nice, fun little story that I loved, and I played every single side quest, Austin.
Yeah, me too.
I went through all the shit.
Yep.
And I was like, this is great. These side quests are fucking god-awful.
Right, yeah. They served world building, and that was kind of about it.
Yeah.
Which is, if you want your world building, that's fine.
Yeah.
But this showed that it doesn't just have to be that. Like it can be a little more than just world building.
Yeah. And most of the world building was slavery bad. So it was like, like, come on, dude. And it sucks because I really, when I realized that Yoshi P wasn't the director, I was like, oh well, there's your fucking first problem. I forgot he was just the producer. He was like, yeah, I'd really like to actually lead one. I was like, oh fuck, he didn't lead 16.
Right.
No wonder.
Right.
So yeah, I'll be honest. Not only that, I was talking about this with some people. I said, I even though it's his first really huge game, I think that now Hamaguchi's name needs to be right up there with Katase, with fucking Sakaguchi, with the greats. I think he's the latest, the newest auteur. Like he's the new blood coming in, and he has cut his teeth from like FF Mobius to this. Like, yeah, he's got an amazing team behind him. But they all said this wouldn't have been possible without Hamaguchi. And him turning around and being like, doing what he did, like they developed it in 4 years. 4 years they made this. Like
I thought they were like
turnaround time.
And I thought it was crazy because I thought one of the points of Crisis Core Reunion was to one of the benefits of long-term benefits of doing Crisis Core Reunion would have been creating assets for that game that would later be used here, and that wasn't the case at all. Maybe the Zack model, maybe. But no, all the models in Rebirth are redone. They have way better like facial animation in this game compared to Remake, and that's already crazy.
Every NPC like actually feels like they're a part of the world. Like on all the important NPCs are all well made and well animated, and like there isn't this like jarring difference between the main cast, because you could argue that in FF7 Remake there was a lot of that.
Oh, that was a huge criticism from like casual people, yeah, and in 16 as well.
Like,
which is not something I would have thought. Like I wouldn't have thought they had addressed it, but that's kind of where we are and how huge a budget these games are. And that's I was gonna say the budget is crazy because this is a game made for us with the budget of a quadruple A game.
Which
is made for us, but it is on the budget of Sony's other titles.
Right, and I'm really hoping that that this is a win for them. And I don't think it's going to affect Part 3. I think that they're not going to regress. I think they're going to go ahead and build more.
Oh man, I kind of like.
I want this to be a win. You know what I mean?
There's we have going from this and Remake, we have a very good idea of how each area is going to be tackled, aside from being like faithfully done. And there really aren't many things left because a lot of things are just now revisiting. So there's like a quarter of the new regions that they would have to do. That's just the entire northern continent, which doesn't have anything besides snow places. They moved the Chocobo stage, so that wouldn't be there. Medial actual Fort Condor will probably be in 3. Medial and Wutai Rocket Town and the underwater reactor. Everything else is revisiting.
Right, and you know what I'm thinking, the real, and I'm gonna put it out there because now, and I'm gonna say if it's not in, I understand. All of Midgard. So.
Oh yeah, that has to be there.
You just do the whole world. Well, yeah. I mean, because they could just do a thing where because. When you go to
original,
Midgard,
you can revisit. You revisit like the slums where you met Aerith. Yeah, that's about it, and Wall Market.
Yeah, that's about all you get a room you got. So you don't really need to do that much. But if you turn around and tell me that you add all these other regions and then Midgard, and they confirmed, I don't know if you saw that, Hamaguchi confirmed the High Wind is coming in Part 3. If that fucking happens, it will be the most monumental Final Fantasy game of all time.
If the drop-in mission when you go back to Midgar and you go after Hojo in the end, if that's done through dropping out at the open world and it like Tears of the Kingdom like Sky style right into fully fledged Midgar, that'd be insane.
Fuck. That would be incredible. Like I think that they could do it. I now have full faith in this fucking game.
Oh yeah.
Now that I've walked away from this, and not only is the game incredible, not only is I mean, there's it's not perfect. Not every game is, but god damn it, it is the closest to a perfect title I've played in a very long fucking time.
Yeah, but I mean, with budgets, this is kind of what we're seeing. Like, the budget for these games now is so high that we do see Western studios crumble at trying to maintain this. But because of how business works differently in Japan, like, it takes longer. Although it was a very optimized, like, 4 years. Like, it's nothing short of impressive. But goddamn, the bar is so high now.
Right. It's kind of a shame. It's like they really. If Part 3 ends up not being as good, it will suck. I'm sure it'll still be Rebirth quality, which
I hope it isn't as long, though. I hope they don't expand it too much, especially because you could... Well, and I also hope that, when they eventually release all 3 games together, I hope they can take some of the padding out of VII Remake, so that it is a smoother... If you play all 3 games together, it's a bit smoother to go between the two. And ultimately, because of that, because Part 1 is a shorter game, Part 3 and what's left of it doesn't really need to be expanded, because this covered the bulk of it. And a lot of revisiting, everything's already done. Kamurocho is set.
Yeah.
We don't need to run through it.
That's what when they talked about the presence of the Highwind, they were like, it's just more about expanding what we have right now, which means that we're probably going to see this a lot sooner than we think, and we're probably going to be like, it's going to have a lot more than we think.
Right.
I think it's going to be even crazier.
They might have something else underground, and then like usual, it's like, oh yeah, of course that would be there. Of course there have to be other small villages outside of the main places we know of. Of course Gongaga is surrounded by a whole actual jungle.
Yeah.
You know, like these details and things they added that just like, oh yeah, of course it would be like this.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm fully expecting. Again, it's gonna blow me away.
Yeah, I stopped watching the trailers after the Game Awards. So let me say from that one, it was see Jesse's actual role in the Gold Saucer. That was I thought she was still alive. No.
Yeah.
Nope.
No.
They got us.
She dead as hell.
Yeah, she dead as hell. And then, so I didn't see the trailers or press material after that. So when I saw Cisne, that was really fucking cool, because I had no idea she'd be there.
Yeah,
that was... So I'm glad I stayed away from anything that was in trailers.
That final, I think they did this last month, where they were like, let's do a direct for FF7, was a lot. It was... Oh, yeah. It did reveal a lot.
And ultimately, why they're going to keep doing it like that is because of Final Fantasy 15. It's because if you only show one portion of a game that's open world like that, that's red flags now.
Yeah, it's like we were talking about earlier. It's like, I think it's really kind of hard to sort of look at. I don't know. I want gaming to not be as cynical as it is now, and it's hard because I'm surrounded by so many different fucking opinions, and I get that people aren't going to like everything. They don't have to like this game.
Especially
right?
Final Fantasy. This is the most... Yeah. I think this is just the most divisive series, because it's gone on longer than Sonic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but that was like the beauty of Final Fantasy, right? Is that Final Fantasy is an experience that if you come in at any juncture, it's like a different thing to you, right?
Yeah.
People who started at 4, 5, and 6... are not going to look at the series the same way as people who started at 7, 8, and 9. Yeah. And then 10, 11, 12, and so on and so forth.
They're all different. And that's the thing with Final Fantasy, is Final Fantasy's always been a trendsetter. It has familiarity to it, but this is the series. This is the trendsetter next to, Dragon Quest, which is Dragon Quest invents more than trends. But as far as trends are, that's Final Fantasy.
Yeah. But I'll be honest, I'm gonna give it up to Sega. I think that they looked at what 7 and 8, Yakuza 7 and 8 were. Oh yeah. And I want to say, coming away from this, I'm like, they definitely felt like they're like, no, we got to do this on a wider scale. Like,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I really get that feeling here because especially after playing Like a Dragon 8, or where I was like, yeah, this is incredible, and like the amount of side content's incredible, and all the story writing is incredible, and all the characterization's incredible, and all this, and all the fucking replete with as many mini games as humanly possible. Like there's so many different distractions, and they're all really fun and fucking cool, and it's all like supplementing a story that's got amazing character writing, and it's just like, yeah, I'm gonna give props to Yakuza on this one. That like they I'm pretty sure that they were looking at it and were like, let's kind of take some stuff from this and see what we do. I think the difference is that like the charm is going to be different inherently between the two.
Yeah,
and there's also like honestly, even though it's the Yakuza series is a AAA title, their money is being spent in a different manner when it comes to like, and also the mini games feel like so many of them feel like they're like amazing additions to the storyline. Like turning the fucking parade thing from like you sneak into what's happening, and then you kind of just like, oh hey, who's that random guy? I'll give him some money. To you're going through Junon, you're like discovering Junon, you're recruiting all these people, and they all got their own cool little unique storyline. And then like it all culminates into. Did you win the game, by the way? Because
100%.
My second playthrough, I found a way to win it because I the first
what do
playthrough
you
I
mean
did
win?
only 5. You can win the parade thing.
Yeah. Oh, both. Like when they both and like both awards.
You can win both awards. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
Yep. I wasn't gonna go on until I did that.
Yeah. On my second playthrough, I won the first award. I was like, I'm glad that you can do that.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I kept realizing. It was like, there is so much more openness to this game than I'm giving it credit for. Because I'm so used to Final Fantasy being one thing for the last couple of years. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's like, that's literally what happens with taking what was in the original game, but done on a PS1 scale, and doing it by modern, expansive detail. Like, that's like... and the fact that there really weren't compromises. There's no compromises on anything. They're just expanding on every asset and or every facet rather. Like like taking what the original did and no holds barred. It's not, there's limitations out the window, Cloud doesn't have to deliberately just have a scene of beating Aerith when it can be far more nuanced. Everything with dying had like a million things going on around it at the same time, but there was still room for nuance and to expand on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where it's, and that's definitely a thing where it's almost to a fault how faithful it is, because dying ultimately is a bookmark, or you're in and out of there like very briefly, for how dramatic it is, and it's a core backstory, and they literally play into that in Rebirth as everybody else is going about and keeping their Final Fantasy VII tones, while Barrett's on the ground still mourning and thinking about those last powerful words Dyne left him with.
And then they immediately followed up. They immediately followed up with the fucking meme fight with Palmer.
Right.
That has one of the sickest fucking tracks in the game.
Yeah, that was
You're
a good
like,
song.
whoa, what? And I'm like through. Like, in my playthrough when I was streaming it, like, I was, like, pissed. I was, when he showed up, and I thought that was an amazing feeling.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, you fucks. Like, this is not the time. I was like, you motherfuckers are wasting my goddamn time.
Oh, yeah.
Poor Barrett's going through it. I'm gonna fucking finish this fight as soon as possible. And that was amazing storytelling, I thought. It was just yeah, people kind of felt like, oh, it was a little weirdly, tonally, like, whiplash. And I'm like, no, it's perfect. It's incredible. It's on purpose because you're like, man, fuck this guy. I'm grieving. I don't have time to deal with this stupid asshole.
Yeah, and that's where, and they definitely play into it because they put emphasis on how Barrett is still just sitting there very deliberately. And it's, again, something playing off the original and how fast and brief it actually is in the original, despite being so important. But I mean, it's so well done. And watching it back, you know, there's the honeymoon phase, but I've been watching other streamers go through it, and on a second playthrough, that scene wasn't paced as fast as I originally thought it was. I can still see it though. On like first time, it is pretty fast. Going back, there is like, they do try to put a fade to black and a little bit of pause before things go back to being wild. But I mean that's the other thing, is there is a complete obsession with keeping as much action active at all times. And for when you get to disc 2 of Final Fantasy VII, that's all disc 2 is. Like Final Fantasy VII disc 2 is just, as you're traveling around, it's just set piece after set piece after set piece. You're going from the fucking kaiju battles going on around to the train in Coral to, again, Rufus moving the fucking Junon cannon to Midgar, the fucking pilot ship in. Like, man, that's... And then we're gonna get to see all of that again in the third game, too. Like, it's definitely... the third game fits their format for that.
So I'm gonna, before I want to start like talking about some real story shit. I'm gonna cap this off by saying kind of a hot take. And the more I think about it, the more I have this game in my hands, the more I'm like, I don't care how hot of a take it is. It's how I feel. Now, having gone through, because like I am, like I said, in a unique position, just like you were. I'm playing the original alongside the same one, and I've played it so many times. I've gone through that story so many different times. But now, coming off of Rebirth, and I'm like, oh wow, like I get that there's stuff that like obviously you have to adhere, like, oh, it was too good a time, like there was just certain things that like didn't age very well in terms of storytelling. I'm not talking about like, you know, like politics shit or anything. I'm talking more just like how the quality of the storytelling, right? Yeah. And it's like vastly a different experience, it feels like, in certain regards. Oh yeah. But only because like some of the characterization that you get in this one feels so weird in the original. So like, yeah, Barrett comes off a lot more like a weird comedy character. People are calling him, like, you know, left and right, you know, because that writing was still in there. Right. And then Aerith is very okay with calling Barrett stupid all the time and just being kind of an ass, like, most of the time. And it's like this weird rivalry between Aerith and Tifa for Cloud. And I'll be honest, I 100% think that Rebirth and Remake together as a package have removed the original in my mind as the ultimate Final Fantasy VII experience. I think, well, I can think that, like, yeah, go on. I was like, mainly because it's now, and like it's that way because of the way that the original is. Like, I will have to say this, like, it wouldn't be that way if the original wasn't made the way it is, with its characters being so flawed. Because this feels like the ultimate version of these characters, and I'm glad that this exists. But because of how much more is invested in the storytelling here, and how much more they can get away with here, it's like I kind of am slowly but surely replacing my love with the OG for this one. And I know it's controversial, but it's difficult because I'm like, man, Cloud is so much fucking cooler and crazier in this one. Yeah. And Aerith is so much more inviting and funny, and Tifa's like. Yeah. Whole thing is so much more dramatic and sad, and there's so much more going on that I'm like, oh fuck, I love it all. Yeah, back then you did have like I mean, not just like text box limitations for the English language itself, but you couldn't have expected players to sit there for that long through how much dialogue that there really is. And you know, localization hurts that quite a bit, since you can say more in less, or you can say, yeah, more in less space in Japanese than you can in English. So if you want to like fully fledge out how much is there, you're using a lot of text box, but it goes deeper than that, because it's still, they
from the Japanese perspective, they're still aware of that. It's just you have to be very careful in what details you still like give to the player and how much depth everything has, because that's a very and that's a very careful balancing act of how much is too much, and that's why it's still a really impressive feat in Rebirth that they found where to put in details, and they did it very carefully and deliberately and where it was relevant. Because if you don't do a relevant, you get like the original cut of Episode 4 of Star Wars. If you go off like the George Lucas like too much detail where it is completely aimless in what they're telling you, and then this is the very careful act of providing to you what is relevant. And you know, back on PS1, that's exactly what they did. The writing was so simplistic because they just kept to what they needed to tell you, even if those things were written down on like an internal wiki, because that's what the Ultimanias ultimately go to. Like what they give to the player was just left, and that's why back in those days you would still have more subtle things, and especially in terms of like when you have other limitations like how many animations you can do. Granted, with Final Fantasy VII, the original looked like that because it was an artistic choice, because, you know, they clearly... I mean, it could have also been hardware, but, I mean, they clearly figured it out and did it on purpose in 8 and 9, where one character in Final Fantasy IX is going to have way more animations and higher poly detail than any character in 7. So, there's more room for things there, but when you get to write and flesh out scenes and have more than a room of very bright writers that know it like very carefully how their craft works, and like this is a professional medium that has aged gracefully. That's probably what I'm getting at, is the medium of development has grown since in the last like 20 years, 20 plus years. And a lot of it is still like kind of the same people and kind of the same heads on top of new blood who grew up on what those people created originally too.
Right.
That's the strength of it. Is a big strength of Remake and Rebirth isn't just all the new blood that got into game development because they were inspired by it, but all the old heads are still there too. They just never went anywhere.
Right. The old heads are now able to give those lessons that they learned from their years of experience, and they're turning around and like teaching these new guys like, hey, this is what we wanted to do. Here's how you should probably realize it. And they fucking just execute. They execute flawlessly every single time. And
it's crazy.
We see this with fucking the remakes over at Capcom, how those are all goddamn amazing and mostly made by new teams. And even like you got people like Hideaki Itsuno, who is an old head at this point. But he's got his team and he's teaching all them like all this, which is why I keep hearing so many good things about fucking Dragon's Dogma 2, and you have DMC5, and it's like, these guys are still fucking killing it, and they're doing so in a way that's just like, they understood. They went through the weird growth phase of the was it the 7th gen 360 PS3?
No,
where nobody knew what to do, nobody knew how to utilize this hardware, because it was in that very weird spot where it's like, yeah, it's powerful, but it's still not enough to do what we want to do or fully realize the world we want to realize. So most Japanese companies that like did these big expansive things in the PS1 can't do it on the PS2 or 3 because the technology's not there.
And some of the huge benefits to everything of the original games is like there are still definitely developers that back then understood their craft and everything they were doing. But those eras is from like SNES to PS1, the amount of like written and known like industry material wasn't there. It was so experimental, and that's what's so great about JRPGs of that era is there were so many and they were so experimental. It becomes harder when you get to the point of 360 to be experimental and affording to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. That being said, let's get more of a deeper dive on the ending discussion, because that is a lot.
I was saying in like the first reviews that were out about it, a consistent consensus was it was great up until the ending. The ending was going to be controversial. I thought of it at the time, and I still think it. You can say that about almost every Final Fantasy game. 7,
You can.
8, arguably 9. I'll get to that in a sec. 10, not 12, 13, and 15, definitely, and 16. 15 and 16 in 7 Remake. That's a consistent Final Fantasy thing. 9 was more gameplay-wise, because the final boss just comes out of fucking nowhere in Final Fantasy 9.
Yeah.
But everywhere else, that's just kind of this series' MO, is hearing the endings are controversial. So I didn't put much thought into it. And yeah, that was worth it, because, I mean, it wasn't as upsetting as I thought it'd be. I thought we were going to have something upsetting when they started going into the multiverses and Zack chose to go towards Hojo. I thought that was going to be the start of mischaracterization or something, and then it wasn't.
Yeah. That's what I was looking for. I was looking for something that was going to, like, I was going to take it away and be like, this ruined the experience as a whole. Like, that's what I was trying to figure out something that was like, what can be so maddening that people turned around and they said, "Oh, it's the worst thing that's ever happened." Because there are a lot of people, kind of like just wholesale throwing the baby out with the bathwater in this one. Like none of what happened was deserved, which doesn't make any fucking sense. Because I think that Rebirth did a much better job at leading up to the timeline shenanigans and all the multiversal shenanigans than the remake did. But I think that the reason why that happened in Remake was because they kind of needed to have that weird, awkward part, and that's sort of integral to the storytelling, where it's like, oh no, this is weird and meta and kind of like maybe an insult to the players. But that's the thing, is that like,
it was also
once again,
it was also still like vague.
Yeah, it was super vague.
And in Rebirth, it's not only more fleshed out, but they do some proper like foreshadowing and story structure to it. But I guess that still kind of went over people's heads, especially for someone who doesn't want to see any of that. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're gonna like turn your nose as soon as there's whispers on screen, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you.
I'm now, if anyone sits there and refers to it as Kingdom Hearts shit, I do not take their opinions into account ever again. Like I think that, first and foremost, you don't know what Kingdom Hearts is about, and I understand why that is, but this is not on the same level.
Right.
And the idea that people are like, there's a difference between not understanding what's happening, and that's completely fine, but to sit there and try to infantilize it, and even then go after a fucking series, which ultimately explains the story well enough if you follow what's happening. Like, it's not that's hard to follow, it's just dense. Like, there's so much of it.
And that's what's crazy, is because it's, as far as it goes here, like, Kingdom Hearts, by having so many games into it, does delve deeper into it, but this is all, like, right there.
Yeah.
And the characters literally call it out. I think they like, know, and they tried to do something about it by having them literally call out, Sephiroth is controlling these whispers. Aerith the planet controlled the other whispers. And that's where everything, and then you look back at 7 Remake, it's like, yeah, that makes more sense. But no, yeah, they're literally addressing it in dialogue, and that can still bounce off people. That is why, and that's like kind of a fucking annoying thing in some Japanese writing, is reiterating the same plot point. They have to do that. People don't listen to the first time. They're gonna keep explaining things like Austin. That. Yeah.
And this is gonna sound like a really weird comparison, but I think you'll understand. I put this right up there with the people who don't get the whole story reasoning behind Abby and Ellie in Last of Us 2.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's a lot of people who, because they have this personal relationship with the games that they consume, they can't see the forest for the trees. So when something happens to a character that they dislike, or maybe there's a change to a storyline that they ultimately don't feel they agree with, they take it as like this massive personal affront to who they are as a person, because they associated these elements with their character and who they are and what they like so hard that it's just impossible for them to turn around and be like, no, I don't want this to happen. I don't want my Final Fantasy VII to be crazy multiversal shenanigans. But at the same time, it's like, a full 1-to-1 remake would not have sold anywhere near as hard. I think people would have gotten it, and they would have been like, we would be talking about how like, oh, there's so many missed opportunities of what they could have done. They didn't expand on the things we wanted to expand on. There wasn't a whole lot. Where like they had this whole compilation thing that they didn't do anything with or what have you. And there would have been a small subset of people who would have bought into it and been fine with it. And those are all fucking old heads. And I understand that. Like, I am an old head too. But there's a difference between, you know, looking at something with rose-colored glasses and being incapable of like understanding or trying to like feel what the storytelling is trying to go for, and just being like, I'm not really a big fan of it. Like, I think if you turn around and you say, no, I'm still not a big fan of it, they're fine. But if you sit there and try to like go, it's offensive, it fucks up everything, it doesn't. It builds on things in ways that nobody's really thinking about or talking about, because they can't even get past the fact that like multiverse, and I want to say the major reason behind this is because there's so much hate around the MCU and how it's basically dictated how entertainment moves for the last fucking decade and a half, that conceptually the idea of a multiverse makes people like cringe, and I get it. But hey, everything everywhere all at once exists. Go fuck yourself. I'm sorry. Like, you can do multiverse stories and make it work, and I think that this one is working. I think it's doing the Spider-Man Spider-Verse, like, it's doing the right things. It's doing the things of like, no, there are canon events. No, there are things that cannot be stopped. Do you have to, like, these are things that we want to, you know, tell stories about, and then the story is going to be about like either dealing with the consequences of those actions, or, you know, trying to remediate whatever we can and see if maybe we can put a stop to something. Like, I don't think Eric's going to come back per se, but I think that on some level we're gonna get some kind of new world timeline, kind of like a Xenoblade 1 situation, right? Where it's like, it's not that everyone's honky-dory, it's just that the world that's here is what it should have always been. It should have always been Mechonis and Bionis combined together, and these people being able to facilitate relationships with one another, like that kind of thing, where it's like a world without Meteor. That's what we're going to find. We're going to see a situation where it's like a Gaia that's going to be untouched by Sephiroth's fucking maniacal, literal diseased influence, and getting Genova out of the equation. Yeah, just no Genova, just getting them out of the equation to give Gaia a chance at fucking just being around. You know what I mean? Yeah,
because there is so much that like would still be there if Genova wasn't there.
Yeah, I poor Gast. If Gast had known what he was really looking at, we would have this wouldn't have happened. None of this would have happened. Maybe the world would have still gotten fucked up by Shinra, but you know. I was
gonna say with Gast, there were I didn't get as emotional as I thought I would in this game. There are 2 times where I teared up. Was in the flashback in the trial. You know, when Ifalna's sitting there dying, that was Gast in the white pants coming out with them from the train.
Was it? I didn't notice that.
Oh,
I thought it just said researcher.
So. No, that was the researcher was next to him. But that had to have been Gast, the one, because they specifically put a dude there in white pants. There was a researcher there in a lab coat. There was also Gast there in white pants and a lab coat too. I was like, they're pulling out Gast for that, like a tease. So, like, realizing that was Gast coming there to check on Ifalna got to me. The next part was during the fight where it's just Cloud and Zack, and Zack compliments Cloud on how proud he is, and looking at him now. That got to me.
That was pretty good. It was very good. That whole sequence was fucking... I'll be honest, like, Zack being alive in a multiverse situation for that fucking fight to happen was all worth it. I think
that's exactly what it feels like.
If people got to that fight, I think they would feel the same way. But I think they hear about the multiverse and they go, "Fuck it, I'm not going to even try."
Right, because ultimately that's all it's like. The purpose of that stuff is just to facilitate like a cool moment like that, a cool fan service moment like that. And also the continued like game of 5D chess, which you don't really have to keep track of. You just need to like, you know, that's because Aerith's planning something. Aerith still has 2 things up her sleeve. She has the empty white materia, and then she also has Marlene.
Yeah.
And part 3 will probably do something with Marlene.
I mean, now that we know that she basically might be, it's all but confirmed that she might actually be an ancient herself. I don't know. It seems like the only people that can share knowledge of what's really happening are like entities that live for a while, like Red, or ancients. You know what I mean? Because she didn't translate it. She didn't give her knowledge to anybody else but Marlene and Red. So it's like there must have been a reason for that.
Like if there was anything like about that, this would be Cope, because it might try to explain how Dyne suddenly was grabbing everything around him.
Yeah,
during that part of the fight.
Know. Like, you know what? I want to say that maybe that might be the Wu Chai's interim government doing something. I want to say that maybe it was less of Shinra thing and more because now that we pretty much have it confirmed that Glenn is also doing Sephiroth fucking level shenanigans,
right?
And like combining fiends and shit.
Well, yeah. The thing is, that's like looking at it from the original game. That's just Genova. Glenn is Genova. Sephiroth is Genova. I don't know where Glenn is. The real Sephiroth is still fucking stuck in ice in the Northern Cavern. That is entirely where he is throughout both of these games so far. Every other vision of Sephiroth, the thing fucking with Cloud, the thing fucking with Rufus now, is Genova.
I think it's actually been confirmed that Sephiroth is like actually exerting his will over Genova. Like he's utilizing Genova. I think it's the other way around in Remake now.
Yeah.
It's that he's utilizing Genova's powers and like every fucking clone is a transceiver.
I just think seeing Glenn though, and Glenn very much acting in the same way that Genova projected Sephiroth does, but to Rufus. Is also still, at the very least, Genova is still doing that.
Yeah, no, Genova's playing a part in it, but I think that she's still taking a backseat to, like, I think Sephiroth is I think we're dealing with the Sephiroth in the live stream who's like, no, I want fucking, like, I'm glad that my once again, my first idea of all those 4 years ago when I said it seems like fucking Sephiroth might be going for some form of dimensional immortality. I'm very glad that I would call that out very quickly. Because it's exactly what he's doing. It's literally him going, no, I want to combine all timelines so that I can literally suck the fucking lifeblood of multiverses. And you're like,
that's the reunion.
That's the reunion.
That's the reunion, and that is they are putting in this plot point that if you can't return to the life stream, you can't die. And like there's that sense of immortality and I always think it's interesting, you know, if you have immortality, you can't die, you're gonna go fucking deranged.
Right.
And you're going to at least struggle in some sort, like the Gi clearly have. Because the Gi's plan for dealing with it was obliterate everything.
They were very much also of the mindset of just take the planet out.
Yeah.
Which is why I am 100% convinced that Redemption is the next name.
I can see that.
Because it's going to be... I think that what we're going to be seeing is that I think that's... Aerith realizes on some level that maybe Genova really is the main bad guy here, and so is fucking Hojo, right? Like, Hojo is still, like, sitting in the background, collaborating on everything. He's still very much watching it all go down. Like, it feels like he knows more than he's letting on.
Yeah.
And Aerith very much understands her purpose and is trying desperately to, like, hand off another version of Holy to Cloud, which, once again, kind of hardcore confirmed at the end that the fucking materia is still clear again for whatever reason. I don't know why, but we might have to get another Holy.
Right, because there was the Zack dimension where it was full, and then in the current dimension it's empty, and then she's through 5D chess gets them both in the full one's gone. Cloud has the empty one and the full one. Or he has the empty one and the black materia still on hand.
And Zack might have the full one. So, like,
Yeah.
When the reunion happens, it might just be that Zack plays a much more vital role in making Meteor or stopping Meteor as a whole.
And they were and Sephiroth vaguely knows because he deliberately calls out Aerith hiding here in this dimension that has already given into their fate. Like they were there. These aren't necessarily dreams, but they are dimension hopping for a little bit.
My bad. I should have been streaming I switched over to my stream footage.
That's all right. I still have the stream up. So they're hopping between them, and it's clearly being addressed that that's what's going on. It just feels good that a lot of stuff isn't like as much theory anymore as it is deliberately said and explained.
Yeah.
And then like a little bit of foreshadowing as well.
And I actually don't think that the other criticism that people kept levying at it was that it was too fast. I think everything was paced just fine. I don't know what they're talking about anymore. I genuinely am looking at it from an objective angle, and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck people are even saying.
That's what I was saying is the only way I can imagine it is if you haven't thought about it in 4 years.
Right, and there are people who make a really good point, like Gas Max in chat is saying Zack was not in this game enough to warrant him being on the cover, which I don't necessarily disagree with, but I also see why he's still very important in the whole grand scheme of things, and
But neither was Nishiki and Yakuza Kiwami.
I mean,
he wasn't on Yakuza 1, but still.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those things,
I like the what is it? When during the last stream, I was saying that this Sephiroth will be at the end of Rebirth, and the phase 1 was, but they didn't give us Birth of a God. That was such a tease. They know
it was a very big tease.
That song is so underrated. They know to save it.
Someone brought up a really good point in a comment that I was looking at an ending thing where they were like, we're getting very, very close to the Advent Children version of One Wing Angel, and I'm very excited.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if you've heard that version. That is the ultimate version of One Wing Angel. It's
actually
sick.
Yeah. Sometimes it's easier to hear that than the original, and then it surprises you when it happens too.
Yeah. Look, there he is. There he is. He's about to get fucking taken out again. But yeah, so my whole theory now is FF7 Redemption is going to be there's going to be a redemption of several things. One, I think that Aerith is going to, when she's in the live stream, attempt to kind of change the way that the live stream works and sort of try to manipulate how Gaia exists as a whole. Because we do have the confirmation of the Cetra and the Ancients being kind of a shit tier people now. They're very much gatekeepy. They used a lot of their knowledge to fuck with humans. That too was the craziest thing to me. Was I thought we were all cool.
No,
but no, they even fucked with humans too.
They were at war.
They were at war with the humans. I was like, that's fucking crazy. They just didn't give a shit about anybody.
Yeah.
And there's this, and planetology is built on this notion of the Cetra were so nice, and then it's no, they were fucking dickheads.
Yeah.
They were assholes who manipulated and used their fucking lineage as a way to gatekeep super hard.
Yeah.
So,
and it's hardly it's not like the first. That's what I love about JRPGs. Is JRPGs explore society of an entire planet, and it has to go into some of these nuances because it's very easy to that was in Final Fantasy XIV's one of its strong suits in writing is how it handles that. Eventually, when we get to Garland and see how that whole society is, despite its empire, and how that shittily run. But there are many other JRPGs that go about their storytelling in that way, in very nuanced fashion.
You could even draw the parallel that the Cetra and the Ancients were just old school Shinra. They were the ones keeping the knowledge of the materia and magic as a whole from human beings, and the Gi were just refugees from another planet escaping fucking Genova, and they were just trying to fucking live their days out, and the fucking Cetra weren't having it, and the planet wasn't having it. So I think it's gonna be about Aerith just going like, no, I want to fix this, and the way to fix this is to remove Jenova from Sephiroth and accept him into the fold. Which is why I said I'm thinking that the way they one up the Cloud fight is Zack, Cloud, and fucking Sephiroth is the main 3 party against Hojo Jenova.
Oh, that'd be pretty sick.
I think because they have a fully playable Sephiroth, that would be the way to end it.
That would be the
Sephiroth turns around and goes, "All right, let's fucking do this."
You know, after
and then
like
fight Hojo Jenova.
They humanize Sephiroth because it makes his descent into madness more thrilling. But they have put a lot of time into like that mobile game in humanizing him and everything in the compilation and humanizing him. That might be a good capstone to it. And I would say if it is actually called Redemption, if it is from the get-go called Redemption, I would be on board with that being how it goes.
Yeah.
That would be quote-unquote Sephiroth's Redemption.
The other one I keep seeing thrown around, which I'm not entirely like super on board with, but I think could also work, is Rewrite. Rewrite makes a lot of sense too. Maybe trying to physically rewrite Sephiroth out of existence would be fine, but I think that with the theming, Redemption works way harder. Especially considering it's like remake, rebirth, redemption. Like that would be right on the spot. You have to bring back Gact. No, they're doing it! They're building up to it! They are! There's no fucking way they're not. They didn't bring back Gact in fucking Crisis Core Reunion to not have him show up. Like, we're going to hear, I'm calling it. And if it doesn't happen, it's fine, but I'm calling it. The final fucking theme is going to be Cloud, Zack, and Sephiroth versus Hojova, and the theme is going to be redemption. Like, it's going to be Gact's redemption played like in orchestra form. It's going to be that. 100%
God.
And if it's not, then that's fine. But, like, how fucking ridiculous and sick would that be?
Yeah, exactly. I think because it has to top it. I was blown away when like the Jenova theme in Remake was already so incredible, and then the Rebirth Jenova theme on the ship was, oh my god, that was so good. I've re-listened to that.
That's why I'm kind of happy that the video series I'm doing is going to take a little while, because that means I'm gonna wait long enough to be able to get those songs onto the review itself. So
yeah,
because by the way, shout outs to all the people uploading the battle themes and everything. Still absolutely following the trend of this is not Jenova Life Clinger's theme. This is not like. That is an amazing naming convention for those videos to get Square Enix off the trail. And you know what? Square Enix they haven't fucked with them. Every single, this is not like the Midgar Expressway. They lit them up. They're like, all right, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's a really incredible soundtrack. Some of the Chocobo tracks too. Some of the music that plays when you're doing the Chocobo race is pretty good too.
But to kind of bring it all home, so to really just fully explain it to everybody who still may not be able to get it, essentially when we killed the Arbiters of Fate, it created a situation where we were able to facilitate multiple timelines due to several actions. So any action that would probably go against the norm in Final Fantasy VII's original storyline now has multiple timelines. But as we've noticed, those timelines just they don't exist for very long, and they kind of like die really quickly, or something happens to where it tries to correct itself.
So
every single time.
Yeah. So yeah, go on.
So what that means is that ultimately Sephiroth loses in every single timeline, no matter what. And the defining factor, the X variable, is Cloud. Cloud is the guy who beats him every single time. There's no wonder, like, that's why he is so adamant about keeping Cloud around and trying to switch him around, and still fucking with him even during the final boss battle by saying, are you even sure any of this is real?
Right.
and it's because he knows that Cloud is the man who puts him in the fucking coffin. He's the one who loses, and he can't get his dimensional immortality of sucking the lifeblood of literally all of eternity as a whole if Cloud exists, because Cloud is still strong enough to fuck him up. As we've seen in every other final boss fight, he's the only reason why he's losing is because of Cloud. So going into it, it's going to be about the worlds converging. We're going to see some craziness happen there, and maybe, hopefully, we'll see a redemption arc for the Cetra, for Gaia as a whole. Because why is Gaia doing this? Why is Gaia going out of its fucking way to be so gatekeepy to people that don't deserve it? And is it all literally just to fight Jenova? And it's like, well, how do you get rid of that? You redeem the fucking the progenitor of Jenova. So,
right?
We'll see.
There's a lot to. There's a lot of good set pieces and moments that we'll get to see in the final game. But yeah, the way to it is also as you were saying, sir, in the purpose it serves. You don't have to overthink it.
No, I don't think I'm making any sort of leaps in logic that are crazy. I'll be honest. I feel like the way that the story has been set up so far, and how we've been calling it from the very beginning. Right. every single time we discuss this, we have essentially called every single story step along the way. We called the Wutai War before Remake even came out. We called the interdimensional immortality before Rebirth came out. I think that we're going to be right on this one too. We're going to be right on the whole that it's going to be about Aerith trying to redeem us. She is literally going to pull a Jesus, 100%.
Right, as she was. As she was trying to do at the end of 7 OG.
Yeah.
It's more noticeable here because Sephiroth's doing it more consistently. But remember, in the original, Sephiroth isn't misdirecting Cloud. He's straight up lying to him. When telling him, showing the photo and how he literally wasn't in the photo. Not even as the guard. Sephiroth doesn't tell Cloud he was the guard, or he was just a grunt in Nibelheim. He tells Cloud he wasn't there at all, even as a grunt. And there's he lies, and in the original, that's lying to both the player and to Cloud, to misdirect both of you. And in here, it's just him lying to Cloud. But that is lying like that. That is there too. They are faithful to the original, to arguably to a fault.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna answer some questions here because I do see some stuff I want to respond.
I'm gonna go through some other notes I had of things I probably wanted to discuss.
Sure. Let me grab this real quick. So is the DLC going to be Zack focused or Vincent focused? So there is no DLC coming. DLC. They have already confirmed. The reasoning behind that is because they want to work on the third one and get it out as soon as possible. So we may even see a smaller or shorter timeline of this might come out in 2 years. If they did this work in 4 years, what they want to add, this might come out in 2 years, which would be great and make it so that it's not as fucking insane. And I'll only be 35, so so that'd be nice. And then I've heard the name Reprise. Oh, Reprise might be one. I think that one makes sense.
Yeah.
Will Genesis have the Crisis Core Drama Kid voice or the Dirge Spaniard voice? God only hopes. I maybe both. We'll see. We have Nero, so technically we have Gat. Yep. He isn't shocked to learn that Zack is alive as well, or threatened by him or anything. No, he kind of is shocked a little bit, but it's not in this. It's not in this It's Sephiroth going, no, what are you doing here? And then he just fucking gets rid of him. He just literally cuts open a hole to get rid of him, and it's easily the funniest scene in the ending, where he's running up to Sephiroth and he's going, "Hey, the fuck!" And he goes, No, shut up. And it just gets rid of him. Real Redemption still have Sephiroth doing the move where he destroys all the planets. I think we will see. I think Supernova will be a DPS check. Yes. But I think it won't just be planets. It'll be universes. We will see like entire universes being destroyed. If what you say actually happens, my whole body will bleh and go down the drain back to the live stream. Good.
That's the round 2. We got to stay still.
And then if it is going to come out in 2027. So 5, 6, 7. I mean, maybe that's probably what they're shooting for. But I don't know. I mean, it definitely makes more sense. I think you might be right in the fact that it might just be like what happened in Rebirth, where a lot of us thought it was going to be a 2023 title and ended up being an early 2024, so it might be an early 2027 title, which is fine. Yeah, I'll be fine with that. You know. So go ahead. You have some notes you want to go over?
Yeah, more things that just make sense when you like expand on them. Of course, Sid who knows who Ifalna was. Like if he's been around Shinra long enough, he would have known. So that's a really cool like. That's again, you are adding motivation, and it makes sense, and it's warranted, and it's relevant information. Adding that Sid knew who Ifalna was. Yeah. Like, that's a very strong example. I'm sure it got lost on some people, but Red was supposed to be... a whole point of Red's character is that he's a child. So the casting on him was perfect. With his with Max's vocal range. Mm-hmm. That was very good casting, and it immediately fit the character. And I was surprised by it, but that's literally the direction of Red. There isn't as much time to go into it in the original, but that was entirely the point of Red in the original, was that he was actually a child.
So this plays back into the whole translation thing, and why localization is such a much more important endeavor nowadays, and why I fucking hate the amount of people that are trying to belittle localizers and like get rid of their like intention or what have you. Mm-hmm. Apparently in the original Japanese script for Final Fantasy VII, his mode of speech changes drastically because in the Japanese language, there are different ways of speaking that indicate your age, right? Like you just there's just different words that you use or don't use that you would do, and they convey this in a way where it's like, I think the best way to like the best example of that is when he's sitting there and telling people like when I have to stay here to be a protector of this village, and then Aerith's like, we're gonna miss you, and he's like, come on, man, like he immediately reverts into a child, knowing full well, because it's Aerith, and he's comfortable with Aerith because like Aerith knows him inside and out, basically. Mm-hmm. Which I thought was super cute, by the way. I thought that was an amazingly cute way to do it, was that he's only actually vulnerable with her. And this moment got me. When you're talking about when he goes good to go, Nanaki, and he's referring to him by his fucking name.
His actual name. I was like, oh shit, like, I feel bad about leaving his name alone now in the original. Yeah, like my heart like expanded. I was like, I fucking love. And also the headcanon that somebody on the development team watched Final Fantasy VII Machine Abridged and loved the Red and the Barrett dynamic there so much they just made it real, is actually incredible. But him turning into Nanaki and Nanaki being like, yeah, we're in there. It's like, fuck yes, that's incredible. And the difference, like, that's an amazing storytelling device of being like, Red 13 is the old man, and Nanaki is who he really is. Like, I fucking love that. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. So I got some more things. I just going through here. There is a Final Fantasy IX homage in the Cosmo Canyon's Chocobo theme. It's just hard to hear because when you go into a different part of that zone, it will change. It changes off of the Chocobo theme, so you can't. I didn't pick up on it at first until I was told that there was the leitmotif of Final Fantasy IX's overworld theme is in the Cosmo Canyon Chocobo theme because you don't hear it long enough to get to it. But that's more like crazy respect to the rest of the series, just there.
That's amazing.
Red being a kid. Yep. I think I have everything, which is, why I wanted to do this, because this would have been way harder to do. Oh, there was, I wish I could talk about Gilgamesh, because I'm sure the final fight, Battle of Big Bridge, is incredible, but I still need to experience that firsthand. Same with, like, I don't know if he's going to change which weapons he has, because he just has the Faux Buster Sword and the Nail Bat, and his, Gilgamesh's thing in every game is having the prior game's main weapons. Like, he's had the Buster Sword in like, I think 12? Gilgamesh has the Buster Sword. So that's what I look forward to, because I still want to know, like, for the next time they do Gilgamesh, I guess in Final Fantasy 17, what is he going to have from 15 and what is he going to have from 14? I'm always looking forward to that, and I don't know if they did that with 7 Rebirths.
It would be, I would think it would be not, I don't think we would talk about 14. I think it would be 15 and 16, and 15 would be the engine blade, and in 16 it would be,
no, I think you'll have a Heidelin sword. Or Artbert's axe.
Yeah, maybe the axe.
I was expecting that because with 16 made by the 14 team, if they were going to put Gilgamesh in, Gilgamesh isn't in 16. If he was, and they would do something to respect their own game, I thought it would either be like Heidelin's sword or Artbert's axe. Would have been fucking cool.
Did you notice what Buster Blade it is in the back?
No, I wasn't sure. I thought it was Advent Children, but I wasn't sure.
I think it's the modular Buster Blade.
Oh, like yes, it is. Yeah. So that's almost hard confirmation that we're getting modular Buster Blade in Part 3. Right.
Which,
yeah.
Fuck yes. Because you know what? Also, in Loveless, we see Cloud dual wield. So like, dual wields a lot in fucking Advent Children, and that is 100%. How you level up Punisher, because the way to level up Punisher in this one I thought was so good. How you make that even better is you let him dual wield like 100%.
Yeah, that'd be really sick, and it would facilitate making whole new weapon designs again, since they're really not recycling the originals much.
Also, can we shout outs to the fucking dev team that is obviously the one of the 10 or 5 to 10 people watching this stream, because all of the moves of Cloud throwing people off his Buster Sword, like we said, would be super sick. I'm glad they did it.
Yeah.
Oh fuck, dude.
Like the like 15 really was kind of a blueprint, but having it like so organized and put up front on display is so cool. Like, it's still really cool how fluent it is in 15s, but having it have more purpose here makes it even more satisfying.
It's really good. I think they need to definitely make like the synergy abilities feel a little better to use. Maybe give them a little bit more, because they're already crazy good ATB gainers, as it were. But
and they're really powerful.
Very much overlook them. They're like, the synergy abilities themselves are insanely powerful. Like, if you're playing on normal mode, one synergy ability will just cause a phase shift. Like, it's insane how powerful they are.
Yep.
And that's out of stagger too, so it's like.
And they kind of got to do it, because I think that's how they encourage the use of it. That's what I noticed with, like, I was like trying to figure out, they gave everybody has elemental attacks in their abilities list. They don't have to use magic materia. So then what's the value of it? Using the spells from the materia gives you a pip of synergy, and also it's just better damage still.
Yeah.
But it was really cool that everybody has magic on hand for any kind of situation.
Mm-hmm. That, I think that the addition of the elemental stuff is purely hard mode balancing. They were like, okay, well, obviously we've made some enemies that still stagger only exclusively through elemental weakness.
Yeah.
So we need to.
I started noticing that in Chadley fights. Yeah, once you get to even in the Chadley fights, it starts warranting, even on normal, you gotta use magic. You gotta cast. You gotta get rid of the enemy's reflect. You gotta dispel. You need to be ready to Asuna. A lot more and like there. Yeah, I noticed that there were a lot of mechanics in the Chadley fights that were nowhere else until both the Genova Life Clinger and the final Sephiroth fight, and then those and then it felt really cool and kind of like rewarding to have at least experienced those mechanics there and then see them again in the final fight.
Yeah.
Gameplay was the last thing I was going to talk about because playing as Aerith still sucks.
I think if you play Radiant Ward, it's a lot better.
Radiant Ward's so fucking good, but
if you use Radiant Ward, it does. I think that the way that they kind of made her now, the game plan is Radiant Ward, Arcane Ward, and then the one where she puts up a shield in front of her, and literally she's untouchable. And then with Ward Shift, if she gets knocked out of it, she can just literally come right back into it with the Ward Shift. So
I think just like, and the thing is, she slowly builds ATB. So to get those things off the ground, you got to give her things that will give her ATB faster or start her off with ATB. My thing is that nobody else in the game really requires that because they can build it up so efficiently already. I guess it still sets her apart, but I don't think it would hurt if she just like shot her little bips faster.
So for Aerith specifically, I would suggest Combat Savior is insane because all it literally means is you link up with whoever. If you see it on your synergy skill, whoever is attacking, all their attacks then translate to your ATB as well. So it's between it. So Aerith is very much reliant on synergy skills.
Yes.
And if you use Spell Power Blast or Combat Savior, her ATB gain goes exponentially higher than I think most of the people's.
I did start noticing when you're using more of those kinds of materia, like the AI is already actually really competent. So giving them things like that and seeing them get to be more active because it's naturally building faster sped things up a lot.
Yeah, what I noticed with the materia this time around in game was that it was less about doing like cooler combinations of different moves and more so about giving your characters more autonomy, which I thought was an interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
Because you have like materia specifically made for, this one makes it so that when Tifa has ATB, she exclusively will use Unbridled Strength. So like you could use a synergy ability with her and bring it up, and then when she has enough ATB, she'll just pop Unbridled Strength and then just start using that on her own, which I thought was a really good like answer to just purely making it like Gambit based or something like that.
Right.
And
just having the intelligent AI, because if they're pressured, they'll immediately use their focus abilities.
Which is really good.
So it's I mean, the most I struggled with was Aerith and Cait Sith.
I fucking love the way that Cait Sith fucking plays. I adore it because once you understand his whole thing, it's incredible because I there's no detriment to using the dice now. So it's just like call your Moogle out, get on, and then just get off the Moogle and then beat the shit out of an enemy, like literally combo off the Moogle doing his stuff. That's how I felt. I could see the vision, right? It's as a fighting game thing, he has a higher mental stack. Because he has. Before we leave, I'll go over like a combo video that I saw, which is incredible, and it shows like the potential of this game's combat for sure.
Because Cait Sith has an answer to the player character natively having a little higher enmity, and that when you play as Aerith, you're going to be targeted more often. But for Cait Sith, the Moogle can tank. So it's a little slower ATB, faster than Aerith still, but you get a little wiggle room because you get to let the Moogle take the blows for you.
Actually, his ATB gain, if you will do the hold attack with him on the Moogle, his ATB gain's insane. It's fucking insane. So what I'll do is not only and the fucking dice are physics based. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
So that you can, when the dice is on there, you can move a dice over when it's on the ground. So like you can get what you want if you get to it fast enough, which is fucking sick.
These are my favorite kind of games where the combat is like a puzzle you're figuring out. And like every battle, and that's what's so great about the enemy variety, is that every fight is a puzzle and there is some solution. And that's kind of always been Final Fantasy's thing. It was just back then, Scan didn't even tell you that much back then, but it was also the idea of experimenting. You know, very random bosses have very random like debuffs that they are vulnerable to. And you got to figure those out or figure out those gimmicks, but they're ultimately puzzles, and this feels like the most deliberate way. It's just that there's a lot of variety, so understandably, I can understand people losing track of it because there are so many varieties and there's so many variables, both to how you play and how the enemies are susceptible and what their strategies require are.
Yeah. And you know what's even crazier is that this game still has tech. Like it has like tons of different, like the Tifa dodge, where it's like you normally can dodge like you have got like a small delay. If you uppercut right after, you could cancel your dodge and you just make it like instantaneous.
Oh yeah, anytime it like an enemy said it was pressured by dodging, that was your cue to use Tifa.
Yeah. Not only that, someone found you could do the same thing with Cloud in the air, and what it is you dodge and then like you do the stinger input to go down, or the not stinger, hammer down, whatever. What is the name of it? Whatever, you know what I mean.
Braver?
Well, not Braver. When you press Punisher in the air and it brings you down.
Oh yeah.
Helm splitter, like his own helm splitter. When you do a helm splitter input, if you just dodge again, you can dodge as fast as Tifa in the air. Like,
and that's beneficial because there are a lot of attacks that are completely ground based, or or if they're like Rude, like you could just hover over Rude, and you'll get around any of his counters.
Yeah,
there is some it's and then there's items, there's statuses which are more par for the course for Final Fantasy strategies. So it is just so cool how much it offers.
It's and then you could also make it look amazing as we'll show this video and we'll end it off while the stream on this one. Is there anything else you want to say before we go on?
I'm probably gonna like realize I forgot something, but after 2 hours, I believe I'm good on it.
Yeah. Okay.
Got everything off.
Oh, one other question. Now with all this in the chamber, I did kind of talk about it a little bit. What do you want 17 to be?
I kind of would like it to be this team. Like for a very long time, I would not have like wanted more of what Katase and his team do. Between the direction, the whole direction of Final Fantasy since 10, I was, it's still fine. After this point, they've shown so much that's impressive. I think I'd enjoy a Final Fantasy title from them again if it was a completely new thing to it.
Yeah. I want the future back. Give me back the.
Yeah, we're ready for it. We're ready for it.
We're ready for FF Sci-Fi, please.
Yeah.
I want something in the vein of 13 with gameplay like this. I would like. You would need to tell me more. Austin will probably leave, but we can probably go over that in a little bit. Unrelated, did you guys see the FF7 commercial about Company List? Yes, we did.
It's pretty good.
But check this fucking shit out. Obviously, the normal intro.
It's not over yet.
Dummy fucking shit this guy does in this fucking video.
Imagine if you had the Yakuza playstyles all as separate characters and were, instead of canceling stances in a Yakuza game, you're canceling it to other characters.
Right.
Give him your all. You're gonna feel this one.
Oh yeah, there were moments where this just kind of happened naturally and it's so cathartic.
It's fucking good. This combat system is incredible.
You're in. Good job.
Like, see, okay, you see here?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. The whole Case Sith part is a good filter.
Yeah. That was sick. That is so good. The heavily ascent into fucking the Yuffie. Oh, that's so good.
And they very much, every time they gave you a preset party, those like bosses and the enemy encounters were completely designed around them.
Yeah.
Especially the fight here where you use the girls and it's against Scarlet. That whole fight was deliberately made for Tifa and Yuffie in mind.
I gotta use Firebolt Blade more, man. That fucking move is sick.
Right. Blade Beam is so cool.
It's time you moved on.
Yeah, so I figured out I've never like did the hold input with Siphon Fang up.
Oh yeah.
That it does the Phantom Claws.
Right.
Hell yeah, the real combo video. Oh, the folio system I think needs a little bit of work. Honestly,
system?
I like the folio system.
Oh, yeah. It was a little
Little confusing, but also not very much going on in it. I think they need to kind of separate stat usage from it, honestly. It just needs to be purely ability based.
Yeah. It felt a little arbitrary, which is funny because, I mean, they did skill grids in Final Fantasy X for the sake of not having a traditional level up system.
Right. And it's the fact that it's also locked behind party level, which is almost entirely indicated by like
Story.
your not only story progress, but like I think some side quest progress as well.
Yeah.
So it's like that kind of sucks for people who don't want to be a completionist because it means you just don't get certain abilities. Like,
well, who'd you
like you're not going to get your level 3 limit breaks if you don't use it correct.
Yeah.
Like satellite beams in the game, I didn't know that until somebody fucking showed me like a full folio, and I was like, oh, what the fuck?
Right. Who did you have on both dates?
It was Tifa.
I had Aerith on both because they, it feels like they deliberately put in many more moments with Aerith. I feel like if you weren't trying to be careful of it, because I figured maybe they'll just give you a prompt to choose, but no, it is still like a hidden system. Well, I mean, they tell you the friend thing, but they don't tell you the details until post game. So anyway, I feel like deliberately, if you were not paying attention, it's going to be Aerith.
Yeah.
But that feels story relevant too, because it follows up.
By the way,
what's up?
I didn't know that Snow Flurry did this. So Snow Flurry was like a tornado input. Like, look at that. So, boom, hit him in the air. Boom, boom, boom.
Oh,
and it's like
yeah.
Them. And you see how he's like dashing across the thing.
Huh. Yeah, using it better than I was.
Boom. Yep. Like, holy shit. That's so fucking sick.
Yep. Because I kept doing it, but it would it would raise them up, and so they were too high to they were too high to focus thrust.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't need to do that if you just build on it like this.
Prime mode is sick, though. I love Prime mode. Prime mode is a lot of fun. Aside from Aerith and Cate Sith, everyone had their starting weapons for me. Really? You didn't? What does that mean? You didn't find any other weapons? Because, like, the game does a very good job at, like, making the weapon story progress. There's, like, 1 or 2 weapons that I would say, like, in Gungaga, you can definitely miss on accident.
Yeah,
but, like,
there were some from, like, some mini-games required them.
Yeah.
I had to go back for.
If you miss a weapon, the game will actually, like, sell you the weapon at the next weapon store in the next region.
Right.
So. We don't want to change them. Did you at least learn the moves?
Right, they all had abilities tied to them. You had to get off of them.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, I saw someone doing Star Showers. Like, wait, that's still here? Where is it? Because Star Shower was behind a minigame, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, it was. Star Shower is very powerful now. I probably should be using it more. I prefer feels floaty to remix Heavy Feel that I liked.
TV appearance.
I can see what you mean.
The lunches we got as miners were much. Looking to make some quick deal. Then I have got some.
I don't know. It felt like if they were primed to get countered, Cloud or Red 13 were built for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, you know, the thing with the scans was, and what I think they could do for the next one is let you change your party mid-battle.
Oh, yeah.
Because it would really benefit from not having to scan, seeing what they want you to do, and then restarting the fight.
Yeah.
So if I could just...
I mean, they already have the system built in place for it, so...
Like, if I just keep the party, I scan, I see, okay, I need to dodge, I need to swap Tifa in. Okay, I need to block, I need to swap Red in. Flying enemy... okay, well, if there's a flying enemy, you can see that before going into the fight, so you can just change to Barret there. They definitely... Like, it should have been, like, the editing your party didn't need to be its like third menu option there. That could have been with the one with equipment. But I think they left it like that so that you'd use the shortcuts in the parties.
Right.
That's how I had it. The Team A was Cloud, Aerith, Tifa, and then Team B swapped in Barret, Team 3 swapped in Yuffie. And then
I was always like going back and forth between different party combinations just to figure shit out.
Yeah.
Because I honestly had a lot of fun playing everybody. I think Aerith was definitely the least fun.
Yeah, I don't want to be without Aerith's healing though. So.
Yeah, praise
or her other abilities.
Yeah.
Or like any of the wards she puts down. I didn't want to be without those, so she stayed the entire time.
Yeah.
She didn't need to. I put auto cast cure on everybody anyway.
Yes. Okay. You see that fucking the new tech with the Punisher thing in the air.
Oh
like,
yeah.
Like as it with the auto tracking move, like it gets you out of there so fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is to a point where I think if everybody had like more iframes on their roll, it wouldn't have made Tifa irrelevant. I think it would have been harmless to have a little more iframes on rolls. Or like it would have been harmless if Aerith had a little more ATB gain.
Like I said, Max, Aerith is very reliant on synergy skills. If you're not using synergy abilities like at all to bring her thing up, her ATB gain is definitely the slowest amongst the cast, I think.
Yeah.
But like Red also deceptively has very slow ATB gain because he's a counter character, but he's a counter character that needs to use an ATB skill to counter. Because you could just always do like the precision block as well, but
yeah,
I think Sentinel Stance is better. So.
They really do try to reward you for using any of those things. Like Cloud gets counter stance at the end, and the damage output tries to be like that incentive is how much fucking damage it does. You know, especially if you're playing on normal, that damage is crazy.
Does Red build with just blocking, or because I thought it was only parries?
Everyone gains with blocking. Not a lot though.
No, I'm talking more about Vengeance Gauge.
Right.
I think Vengeance Gauge is pure parries.
No, it's total blocking. It's 100% just blocking.
Okay.
That's why you could let Red be just controlled by the CPU, and when you need Red, swap to him, and he'll already have the full Vengeance meter.
Yeah, that's what happens. I always see it. I come back and I'm like, yes, perfect, and then just do I go into Vengeance and I dodge and I do the quick little zip thing.
Like I don't want to sit there and block. I'll just let the CPU do it. Do my own thing. Like I would do that, and then I would worry about swapping when like Cloud was incapacitated for whatever reason.
Well, that was the
because Cloud also benefits from blocking. Since when you are in the Punisher stance, you can cancel your attack animations practically cancel into block.
Right. And that was the whole thing in Remake as well. It was like because there was no way to mitigate damage, you just had to eat shit. In order to do so, or to like dodge skills like perfectly, if something was coming your way, you just switch to another character and let that character dodge for you. So
yeah, it is all very carefully, like deliberately designed. It is all intentional. So it's like if there's something that feels off, there's probably something to it. Like it's a surprising amount of, I wouldn't say like critical thinking, but quite a bit of outside the box thinking you got to do. In some scenarios, and in some cases, and why it's weird is sometimes you don't have to do that, because sometimes the assess and what you have to do there is right enough. But if you go through like the Chadley stuff, you start seeing where they want you to pay more attention to every variable.
Oh, that I will say was the one thing I didn't actually use a whole lot of was at this time around I didn't fucking use any summons. I kept going for summons, and I just never I just used them for stats. Like,
yeah, the only one I used was Phoenix for rezzing.
Yeah.
That was the only one I wanted on hand.
And then I guess Moogle Magic is a reason why that would be fun. Like if you find a good move that Katesith uses on a certain summon, like Moogle Magic would be really neat for that. So
yeah.
But anyways, we've been going after this for a while. I'm gonna stop recording here. Yep. And I'm gonna go ahead and stop the stream. Hey, awesome. Thanks for joining me. Appreciate you.
No problem. Glad I got everything off my mind now, I think.
Hell yeah. Hopefully Austin will be helping me out with a small section in one of the coming series we'll be doing. You guys will see that soon. We'll talk about that after I log out of here. Much love to Austin. Please go follow his channel. Austin, I'll catch you on the flip side, my friend.
Yeah, I will talk to you later, Phil.
Peace, brother.
Right. And for the VOD, yep, that's it. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Until next time, go to bed.